Today, I'm going to show you how I prep this room for painting it from this light green to a dark black. It's actually Caviar from Sherwin-Williams. I'm going to show you the steps I took to make sure I protected all the surfaces. First thing I do is I come in and I set up my shop, make sure I have all my tools out of my truck to save myself as much time going back and forth. The next thing I'm doing is removing all the furniture and items from the room in order to make sure I have plenty of space to work. As I remove each item, I'm kind of looking around, kind of thinking about what I need for space. And I think I have one more chair left that I'm going to remove and keep the others there as well, just because they're not fully out of the, or in the way, I should say. So I like to, when there's hardwood floors, before putting down tarps and things like that, is to kind of do some of the other trivial things around, so that way I don't move around the tarps after I get them down. So usually I do that pretty close to last. So as you can see, I've started removing all the wall plates, taking them off as I go, and throwing them in a bucket. That way it keeps things moving and they're in a safe place rather than just laying them behind me or laying them off to the side. That way they're all in a bucket. So I move through and get all of those removed. Sometimes I pop out my 5-in-1 or bring out my 5-in-1 because a lot of times plates will stick. So instead of trying to grab them with my fingers, I grab the 5-in-1 and pop them off. So I work my way around the room, removing all the plates. Doesn't take very long. And then the next thing I'm going to do is start masking off and protecting all the surfaces. So here I'm using a hand masker from 3M with some 48-inch plastic. I like to keep the hook on it. That way I could just kind of throw it in my back pocket and it's still readily available if needed. The masking film works great. This way I can get into a position and then pull the plastic out and get into position. It's a fast way of putting plastic out. Now I'm taping off the edges. Working along so that way when I'm cutting, I don't have to worry about being too careful on the countertop here. Covering up some of the details in the back corner. This takes a little bit. Little pieces of tape just to fill the voids, the missed areas. I also will come back later and protect all these outlets. I usually put tape over the top of them, especially since I'm going a dark color. I want to make sure with those white outlets that I don't get any paint splatter or anything like that coming off the roller or from my brush. So I'll put tape over those. You'll see that in a picture later. Here I start taping off the baseboards. Once again, I haven't put any tarps down yet. I've got booties on over my boots as I walk around, so I'm not getting anything on the floors or anything like that or scuffing the floors. But this way, as I'm scooting around on the floor, I don't move tarps around and get them out of position while I'm taping. So I'm a big fan of taping off baseboards just to make sure that they're protected from any paint splatter off the roller or as I'm brushing and cutting in walls. It's a pretty fast way of doing it, and I get nice crisp lines where the tape meets the wall. So here I'm finally getting out the tarps, laying out tarps. I always have my tarps labeled with a company logo on one side, so that way I always put the company logo up, and that way kind of it's only one way or one side of the tarp then gets paint on it. The other side usually stays pretty clean. So I get these into position, lay them around, make sure I'm getting them up into the corners and protecting all surfaces where I'll be working. After I get all the tarps down, I then also will cover this table with plastic. I'm not painting the ceilings in this room. However, I do want to protect the table just in case anything were to fling off of a roller and I not notice. Otherwise, you run the risk of getting paint in places you don't want it. So I always am overly cautious and protect all surfaces if there is furniture left in the room. I will still cover things with plastic just to make sure, even though I might not be doing the ceilings. I do this with super thin masking plastic as well. This is a 9x400 plastic. Cut it to length, and then I'll open it up. The customer was working from his kitchen counter, so you might hear him talking in the background. And I've done this at 2 times speed just to kind of speed things up, but still be able to show you all the steps I took and showing you the techniques I've used. The next thing I'll do, just because there are times where I want to use a fan to help circulate air, is I'll take a piece of tape and kind of pull it tight around the table. So I'll do this on beds and other furniture and couches and things, and I'll try to pull it tight as I go around. So that way when I want to kick on a fan or as I'm working, the plastic won't blow around or move on me. On each side of the door frame between the 2 sets of windows here, there's just a thin strip. It's probably about maybe 1.5 inches. It's a little too thin to get my brush in order to be able to cut it smoothly and easily with keeping straight lines and not getting paint on the trim. So here you'll see me just taping those off and putting a piece in there just on each side, so that way I can just kind of get the paint in there, make sure it gets to all edges. And when I'm taping off these edges, I'm really pressing to make sure that the tape is getting sealed up against the trim. And now I'm doing a quick walk around, showing you all the prep. I've already patched the holes that need patching. This just kind of gives you a quick overview of what things look like. I've also used frog tape on the outside corners where the new color is going to meet the existing color. All the corners in this house are rounded, even where they meet the ceiling line. So after I actually got started painting here, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get a straight line where the curved ceiling meets. So I later actually taped the ceiling line in order to get a nice crisp line there. You can't see that here, but it was something I decided after the fact. All these walls are also Venetian plaster style, so it made another level of difficulty requiring the tape. Here are some overview pictures again of the prep that was done. And then following this, you'll have some after pictures of what everything looked like after the painting was completed. So those are the steps I take to protect floors and surfaces from getting paint on them when I'm painting a specific room. Now the dining room's all complete and looks way better in terms of the contrast with all the wood in the room and the space and the cabinets. Hope this helps. Have a great day. We'll see you guys later.